Clara Banks had learned the hard way that men like Yates Sullivan were dangerous, and when he walked into her little bookstore on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, every instinct told her to run. He looked expensive in ways that went beyond his perfectly tailored wool coat and the watch on his wrist that probably cost more than her entire year's rent. It was the confidence in his stride, the way his gray eyes swept across her modest shop like he was calculating its worth down to the penny. Clara had been engaged once to a man who wore suits like that, who smiled like that, who made promises he never intended to keep. She had sworn off that world entirely. "Can I help you find something?" she asked, keeping her voice professional as she shelved a stack of mystery novels. He turned toward her, and Clara felt her breath catch despite herself. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that was slightly damp from the rain and a face that belonged on magazine covers. But it was his expression that surprised her, not arrogant or dismissive, but genuinely uncertain. "I'm looking for a gift," he said, his voice deep and warm. "My niece is turning 8. She loves to read, but I have no idea what kids her age like." Something in Clara softened at the admission. She set down her books and walked over to the children's section. "Well, that depends." "What kind of stories does she enjoy? Adventure, fantasy, realistic fiction?" "I honestly don't know." He rubbed the back of his neck, looking embarrassed. "I haven't been around much. Work keeps me busy, but I'm trying to change that." Clara studied him for a moment, then pulled 3 books from the shelf. "Start with these. They're popular with that age group, different genres, so you can see what resonates with her, and maybe next time you visit you'll know her better." His smile was genuine, transforming his entire face. "Thank you, you're very kind." "It's literally my job," Clara said, but she smiled back despite herself. He bought all 3 books without even asking the price, and as Clara rang him up, she noticed his credit card. Yates Sullivan. The name tickled something in her memory, but she couldn't quite place it. "I'm Yates," he said, extending his hand. "Clara." She shook it briefly, trying to ignore the warmth of his palm against hers. "I'll let you know how she likes them," he said, and Clara assumed it was just polite conversation. She never expected to see him again, but he came back 3 days later, grinning like a kid himself. She loved them, especially the one about the girl detective. "She wants to know if there are more in the series." Clara laughed, surprised by his enthusiasm. "There are 5 more books. I can order them if you'd like. Please." He paused, then added, "And maybe you could recommend something for me? I realized I haven't read for pleasure in years." "I'm always reading contracts and business proposals." Over the next 2 weeks, Yates became a regular customer. He would stop by during his lunch breaks or in the early evening, always finding an excuse to linger and talk. He asked Clara about her favorite books, why she had opened the store, what her dreams were. And despite every warning bell in her head, Clara found herself opening up to him. He was easy to talk to, surprisingly funny, and he listened in a way that made her feel like every word mattered. He never mentioned what he did for work, and Clara never asked. She liked the simplicity of their interactions, the way he seemed to leave whatever stress he carried at the door. It was during his 3rd week of visits that Clara's best friend Rachel stopped by and nearly dropped her coffee when she saw Yates browsing the biography section. "That's Yates Sullivan," Rachel hissed after he left with a memoir about mountaineering. "I know his name," Clara said, confused by her friend's wide eyes. "Clara, he's a billionaire. His family owns Sullivan Industries. They're in everything: manufacturing, shipping, real estate. He's been in Forbes. How do you not know this?" Clara felt her stomach drop. "You're joking." "I'm definitely not joking. Why is a billionaire shopping at your tiny bookstore?" Clara had no answer for that. But suddenly, everything made sense: the expensive clothes, the watch, the way he never flinched at prices. He was exactly the kind of man she had sworn to avoid. When Yates came in the next day, Clara was guarded in a way she hadn't been before. "Everything okay?" he asked, noticing immediately. "Why didn't you tell me who you are?" The words came out more accusatory than she intended. He set down the book he had been holding. Because when I'm here, I'm just a guy who likes books, not a name or a bank account. I thought you understood that. I understand that men like you are used to getting what they want. Men like me. His jaw tightened. You don't know anything about me, Clara. I know enough. I was engaged once to someone from your world. He was charming and attentive until the moment he wasn't. He broke my heart like it was nothing. Yates stepped closer, his eyes intense. I'm not him. You all say that. Then let me prove it. His voice was gentle but firm. Have dinner with me. One chance. If I do anything that makes you uncomfortable or reminds you of him, walk away and I'll never bother you again. Clara wanted to say no. Every logical part of her brain screamed to protect herself, but there was something in his eyes of vulnerability that felt real. One dinner, she heard herself say. He took her to a small Italian restaurant tucked away in a neighborhood that Clara loved. No fancy cars, no photographers, just good food and quiet conversation. Yates told her about growing up with impossible expectations, about a father who saw him as a successor rather than a son, about the loneliness that came with wealth. I don't want your pity, he said quickly. I know how privileged I am, but money doesn't buy connection. It doesn't buy someone looking at you and seeing you instead of dollar signs. Is that what you think I do? Clara asked softly. No, that's why I kept coming back. You looked at me like I was just another customer, like I was normal, he smiled sadly. Do you know how rare that is? Clara reached across the table and placed her hand over his. You are normal, Yates. Under all the rest, you're just a person trying to figure things out like everyone else. Something shifted between them that night. When Yates walked her back to her apartment, he didn't try to kiss her, but he held her hand the entire way. At her door, he brushed a strand of hair from her face. Thank you for giving me a chance, he said. Clara rose on her toes and kissed his cheek. Thank you for being honest. They started seeing each other regularly after that. Yates would pick her up after the bookstore closed, and they would explore the city together. He showed her hidden gardens and rooftop views, and she took him to vintage markets and poetry readings in cramped basements. He was surprisingly down to earth, content to eat street food and ride the subway despite having a driver on standby, but Clara's fears lingered. One evening, about 6 weeks into their relationship, they were having dinner at his penthouse apartment when his phone rang for the 10th time. I'm sorry, he said, silencing it again. There's a merger happening and everyone wants decisions immediately. You should answer it. I'd rather be here with you. Clara set down her fork. This is what I'm afraid of, Yates. Right now, everything is new and exciting. But eventually, your real life will take over. The business, the pressure, the expectations, and I'll be the thing you fit in when you have time. He looked at her like she had struck him. You think I would do that to you? I think you live in a different world than I do. Eventually, that's going to matter. Yates stood up and walked to the window, staring out at the city lights. When he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. My father died of a heart attack at his desk when he was 52. He spent his entire life building an empire and never once stopped to enjoy it. I watched my mother grieve a man she barely knew because he was always working. I swore I would never become him. He turned to face her. I took over the company because someone had to, and I'm good at it. But it's not my life, Clara. It's my responsibility. You are my life. The hours I spend with you are the only ones where I feel like I can breathe. Clara stood and crossed to him, her heart aching. I'm scared, Yates. I'm scared of falling for you completely and then losing you to the same things that took my ex. I'm scared that one day you'll realize I don't fit into your world and you'll break my heart. He cupped her face in his hands. Then let me spend the rest of my life proving you wrong. Let me show you that you're not something I'll grow tired of or sacrifice. You're the thing I want to protect most in this world. You can't promise that. Yes, I can. His thumbs brushed away tears she hadn't realized were falling. I love you, Clara. I've loved you since you scolded me for not knowing my own niece well enough. I love your passion and your kindness and the way you see good in people. I love that you challenge me and don't let me hide behind money or power, and I swear to you I will never let my work come before you. Never. Yates! His name came out as a whisper. I know you're scared, but I'm scared too. I'm terrified that you'll decide I'm not worth the risk, that you'll walk away before I get the chance to show you how serious I am. Clara kissed him then, pouring every ounce of feeling she had been holding back into that kiss. When they finally broke apart, she was breathless. I love you too, she said. I've been trying so hard not to, but I do. His smile was brilliant. Then let me in, Clara. Trust me with your heart. I promise I'll keep it safe. The next few months felt like a dream. Yates restructured his schedule at work, delegating more and setting strict boundaries about his time. He took Clara to meet his family, and despite her nervousness, his mother embraced her warmly. He's different with you, his mother said privately. Lighter, like he remembers how to be happy. Clara's parents were equally charmed when Yates joined them for Sunday dinner, rolling up his sleeves to help with dishes and listening intently to her father's stories about his years as a construction worker. There was no pretense, no condescension. He fit into her life as naturally as she was learning to fit into his, but the real test came when the media found out about their relationship. Clara woke up one morning to find photographers outside her bookstore and her face plastered across tabloid websites. Mystery woman captures billionaire's heart, read one headline. Another speculated about her intentions, suggesting she was a gold digger who had trapped him. Clara felt sick reading the comments. People who didn't know her were making cruel assumptions, dissecting her appearance and her background. She called Yates, trying to keep her voice steady. I'll handle it, he said immediately. Don't read any of it, Clara, it's garbage, but she couldn't help it. That evening, when someone left a nasty note on her bookstore door calling her a leech, something inside Clara broke. When Yates arrived, he found her sitting on the floor surrounded by books, crying, Hey, hey. He pulled her into his arms. Talk to me. Maybe they're right. Maybe I don't belong in your world. You belong with me. That's the only world that matters. He tilted her chin up. I'm going to release a statement. Make it clear that anyone who harasses you will face legal consequences. I should have done it immediately. That'll just make it worse. No, ignoring it will make it worse. Clara, you are not an accessory or a scandal. You're the woman I love, and I won't let anyone make you feel small. True to his word, Yates held a press conference the next day. Clara watched from his office as he stood before cameras, his expression stern and unyielding. I'm here to address the recent media attention regarding my personal life. Clara Banks is an extraordinary woman who owns an independent bookstore and has built a business through hard work and dedication. She did not pursue me, manipulate me, or trap me. I pursued her because she is intelligent, kind, and genuine. The narrative that she is anything less than deserving of respect is not only false but defamatory. My legal team will be taking action against any outlet or individual who continues to spread lies or harassment. Clara's privacy and our relationship will be protected. I won't be taking questions. He walked off the stage before reporters could react. The video went viral within hours, with public opinion shifting dramatically in Clara's favor. People praised Yates for standing up for her, and the harassment stopped almost overnight. When he returned to Clara that evening, she threw her arms around his neck. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. No one gets to hurt you and get away with it. She kissed him deeply. My knight in a business suit, he laughed, the tension finally leaving his shoulders. I prefer to think of myself as your partner. We protect each other. As fall turned to winter, their relationship deepened in ways Clara had never experienced. Yates was attentive without being suffocating, supportive without being controlling. He celebrated when her bookstore won a local award, bringing champagne and staying after hours to help her rearrange displays. She attended his business dinners and learned to navigate conversations with investors and board members, surprising herself with how comfortable she became. One snowy December evening, Yates suggested they go ice skating at Rockefeller Center. Clara bundled up in a scarf he had bought her, laughing as they stumbled around the rink together. You're terrible at this, she teased as he nearly fell for the third time. I'm successful in many areas. Ice skating is not one of them. He caught himself on the rail, grinning at her, though watching you glide around makes it worth the humiliation. They took a break to drink hot chocolate, standing close together to ward off the cold. The massive Christmas tree glittered above them, and the city felt magical in the falling snow. I have something for you, Yates said, suddenly serious. He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket and Clara's heart stopped. Yates. I know it hasn't been that long, he said quickly. And I know you had concerns about rushing into things, so this isn't a proposal, not yet, but I wanted you to have this. He opened the box to reveal a delicate silver necklace with a small pendant shaped like an open book. Inside the book, tiny engraved letters spelled out forever. Yates, it's beautiful. I wanted you to know that I'm serious about us, about building a future together. Whenever you're ready, I'll be here. I'll wait as long as it takes because you're worth waiting for. Clara's eyes filled with tears. Help me put it on. He fastened the necklace around her neck with gentle fingers, then kissed her temple. I love you, Clara Banks. I love you, Yates Sullivan. They skated until the rink closed, falling and laughing and stealing kisses under the twinkling lights. Clara felt a peace she had never experienced before, a certainty that this was real and lasting. The new year brought changes for both of them. Clara decided to expand her bookstore, opening a second location with Yates's encouragement and financial backing, though he structured it as a business loan so she maintained full ownership. He was careful never to make her feel dependent, always treating her as an equal partner. Yates began mentoring young entrepreneurs, finding fulfillment in helping others build their dreams. He cut back on international travel and turned down acquisitions that would have required more of his time. His board questioned some of his decisions, but the company remained profitable, and Yates was happier than he had ever been. Spring arrived with cherry blossoms and warm sunshine. Yates had planned a weekend trip to a coastal town Clara had always wanted to visit. They spent their days exploring tide pools and their evenings eating fresh seafood while watching the sunset over the ocean. On their last night, they walked along the beach barefoot, the waves lapping at their feet. Yates had been quieter than usual, and Clara nudged him with her shoulder. Everything okay? He stopped walking and turned to face her. Remember when I gave you the necklace, I said it wasn't a proposal yet. Clara's breath caught. I remember. I've been carrying this around for 3 weeks, waiting for the perfect moment. But I've realized there is no perfect moment. Every moment with you is perfect. He dropped to one knee in the sand, pulling out a ring box. Clara Banks, you warned me I would break your heart. Instead, you've healed mine in ways I didn't know were possible. You've shown me what it means to truly live, not just exist. I want to spend the rest of my life protecting your heart, making you laugh, and building a home filled with books and love and whatever else we dream up together. Will you marry me? Clara dropped to her knees in front of him, not caring about the wet sand. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring on her finger, a simple, elegant diamond that caught the fading sunlight, and kissed her with a passion that made her dizzy. They stayed on that beach until the stars came out, making plans and promises and laughing at how scared they had both been at the beginning. The wedding was held the following autumn in the garden of a historic estate. Clara wore a dress that made her feel like she was floating, and Yates cried when he saw her walking down the aisle. They wrote their own vows, and there wasn't a dry eye in the crowd when Clara promised to always challenge him, and Yates swore to forever be her safe place. The reception was a blend of both their worlds, elegant but warm, fancy but fun. They danced until Clara's feet hurt and then danced some more. Yates whispered in her ear all the ways he planned to love her, and Clara felt so full of happiness she thought she might burst. Their honeymoon was 2 weeks in a villa in Tuscany where they cooked meals together, explored ancient villages, and made love like they had all the time in the world. One evening, as they sat on the terrace watching the sun set over rolling hills, Clara rested her head on Yates's shoulder. I'm sorry I almost let fear keep us apart, she said softly. I'm not. It made this mean more. You didn't fall for me easily, and that's part of why I love you. You made me work for it, made me prove I was serious. I needed that. She turned to look at him. You really would have waited as long as I needed, wouldn't you? Forever, if that's what it took. He kissed her forehead. You're the best thing that ever happened to me, Clara Sullivan. I would have waited lifetimes. They returned home to start their married life in a brownstone they had purchased together, big enough for all of Clara's books, and close enough to both bookstore locations that she could walk to work. Yates had a home office built but kept strict hours, always making sure he was present for dinners and evenings together. Clara's bookstores thrived, becoming beloved community spaces that hosted author readings and children's story times. Yates's niece, now 10, worked part-time shelving books and credited her uncle and new aunt with her love of reading. Life settled into a beautiful rhythm. They traveled when they could, always seeking out local bookstores wherever they went. They hosted dinner parties that mixed Yates's business associates with Clara's artist friends, creating unexpected friendships and collaborations. They argued sometimes, usually about whose turn it was to do dishes or whether they needed yet another bookshelf, but they always talked it through. 2 years into their marriage, Clara missed her period. She took 3 pregnancy tests, all positive, before telling Yates. She found him in his office one Saturday morning, staring at spreadsheets with a furrowed brow. Working on the weekend, she teased. He looked up and smiled immediately, closing his laptop. Just reviewing quarterly reports, nothing that can't wait. What's up? Clara sat on the edge of his desk, her heart racing. I have something to tell you. His expression shifted to concern. Everything okay? Everything is perfect. She took his hand and placed it on her still flat stomach. We're having a baby. Yates stared at her for a long moment, processing. Then his face broke into the biggest smile she had ever seen. He stood up, lifting her off the desk and spinning her around. Are you serious? We're having a baby. We're having a baby. Clara laughed, tears streaming down her face. He set her down carefully, immediately worried he had been too rough. Oh my God, I should be gentle. Are you okay? Do you need to sit down? What do you need? I need you to kiss me. He did, thoroughly and tenderly, his hands cradling her face like she was made of glass. I love you so much, both of you. The pregnancy was easy, all things considered. Yates was simultaneously the most attentive and most anxious, expectant father Clara had ever seen. He read every pregnancy book he could find, drove her to every appointment, and talked to her growing belly every night before bed. What are you telling our daughter? Clara asked one evening, stroking his hair as he rested his head on her stomach. How could you possibly know it's a girl? I just do. Mother's intuition. He kissed her belly button. I'm telling her about how I met her mother, how she was kind and brave and didn't let me get away with anything, how she made me a better man just by existing. Clara's pregnancy hormones made her cry at everything, but these were happy tears. She's lucky to have you as a father. We're both lucky to have you. Clara gave birth on a clear morning in May. Yates held her hand through 18 hours of labor, never once leaving her side despite her squeezing his fingers hard enough to leave bruises. When their daughter finally arrived, screaming and perfect, Yates cut the umbilical cord with shaking hands. She's here, he whispered, tears running down his face. Clara, look at her. She's perfect. They named her Sophie after Clara's grandmother, and she had Yates's gray eyes and Clara's dark curls. The first few weeks were exhausting and magical in equal measure. Yates took paternity leave, something his board initially protested until he made it clear it was not negotiable. I only get one chance to do this, he told Clara as he rocked Sophie at 3 in the morning. I'm not missing a single moment. Clara watched her husband, this man who commanded boardrooms and made billion-dollar decisions, coo at their tiny daughter, and felt her heart swell impossibly larger. He changed diapers without complaint, learned to swaddle like a professional, and sang off key lullabies that somehow always worked. Sophie's first year flew by in a blur of milestones and sleepless nights. Yates and Clara navigated parenthood as a team, supporting each other through the challenges and celebrating every small victory. When Sophie took her first steps, wobbling into Yates's waiting arms, Clara captured it on video and they watched it together that night a dozen times. "We made her," Yates said in wonder. "This perfect little person is ours." "She's pretty incredible," Clara agreed, tucking herself against his side. "So are you. Best mother, best wife, best person I know." Clara tilted her face up to kiss him. "Best father, best husband, best man I know." They had more children over the years, a son named Thomas, who inherited Clara's love of stories, and a second daughter named Emma, who had Yates's business sense even as a toddler. Their home was always full of noise and laughter, with books spilling from every room and children's artwork covering the refrigerator. Yates continued to run Sullivan Industries, but he did it on his terms, prioritizing family dinners and school plays over late-night negotiations. His employees respected him more for it, not less, and the company thrived under his balanced approach. Clara opened a third bookstore and wrote a children's book that became a bestseller, donating the proceeds to literacy programs. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Yates surprised Clara with a trip back to the beach where he had proposed. They left the kids with his mother and spent 3 days acting like newlyweds. "You remember what you said that day in the bookstore?" Yates asked as they walked along the shore. "You said you'd break my heart," Clara cringed. "I was so scared back then." "You were protecting yourself, I understood that." He stopped and turned her to face him. "But look at what we've built together. 3 beautiful kids, 2 successful careers, a life full of love and purpose." "You didn't break my heart, Clara. You made it bigger than I knew it could be." "You kept your promise," Clara said, touching the book necklace she still wore every day. "You spent every day protecting my heart, and I'll keep doing it until my last breath." They kissed as the waves crashed around them, the sun setting in brilliant oranges and pinks. Clara thought about the scared woman she had been, the one who had almost let fear win. She was grateful every day that she had taken the risk, that she had let Yates in. Years continued to pass in the beautiful, messy way that life does. Sophie graduated high school and headed off to study literature. Thomas discovered a passion for architecture. Emma started her first business at 16, selling handmade jewelry online with an acumen that made Yates proud and slightly nervous. Yates's hair gained distinguished gray at the temples, and laugh lines formed around Clara's eyes. They grew older together, their love deepening with each passing year. They still went on dates every Friday, still made each other laugh, still fell asleep tangled together every night. On the evening of their 25th anniversary, their children threw them a surprise party. Friends and family filled their home, sharing stories and toasting to the couple who had built something real and lasting. "Speech," someone called out, and everyone turned to Yates and Clara expectantly. Yates pulled Clara close, his arm around her waist. 25 years ago, I walked into a bookstore in the rain looking for a gift for my niece. I had no idea I was about to meet the woman who would change my entire life. Clara was wary of me, and rightfully so. But she gave me a chance, and I've spent every day since then trying to be worthy of that chance. Clara wiped her eyes, smiling up at him. "She warned me I would break her heart," Yates continued. "Instead, she captured mine completely." "Clara, you are my partner, my best friend, the love of my life. Thank you for taking a risk on a billionaire who didn't know anything about children's books. Thank you for building this beautiful life with me. I love you more today than I did yesterday, and I'll love you more tomorrow than I do today." Clara stood on her toes to kiss him as everyone cheered. "I love you too, forever and always." That night, after the guests had left and the kids had gone to their respective homes, Yates and Clara sat in their garden under the stars. Sophie's old swing set was still there, rusted but cherished, along with Thomas's treehouse and Emma's fairy garden. No regrets. Yates asked, threading his fingers through hers. "Not a single one. You. Only that I didn't find you sooner." Clara rested her head on his shoulder, listening to his steady heartbeat. We found each other when we were supposed to. Everything happened exactly as it should. You really think that? I know it. We both needed to become the people we were so we could appreciate what we have. You needed to understand what you wanted from life, and I needed to learn to trust again. Yates kissed the top of her head. Wise woman. That's why you married me. One of many, many reasons. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars and remembering all the moments that had led them here. From that first meeting in the bookstore to this perfect evening, it had been a journey worth taking. Clara touched her book necklace, the metal warm from years of wear. Forever, it promised. And that's exactly what they had built, a forever kind of love, the kind that weathered storms and celebrated sunshine, the kind that grew stronger with time rather than fading. Come on, Yates said eventually, helping her to her feet. Let's go to bed. We have the rest of our lives to sit under the stars. The rest of our lives, Clara repeated, liking the sound of it. I'll never get tired of hearing that. They walked inside hand in hand, turning off lights and locking doors, their movements synchronized from years of routine. In their bedroom, they got ready for bed with the ease of long familiarity, comfortable in their shared space. As Clara climbed into bed, Yates pulled her close, her back to his chest, his arm around her waist. It was how they had slept for 25 years, and Clara couldn't imagine any other way. "Good night, my love," he whispered. "Good night," she whispered back. And as Clara drifted off to sleep, safe in her husband's arms, she sent up a silent prayer of gratitude. She had been so afraid once, convinced that letting him in would lead to heartbreak. Instead, it had led to the greatest adventure of her life. Yates Sullivan hadn't broken her heart. He had cherished it, protected it, and loved it more fiercely than she had ever imagined possible. And in return, she had given him hers completely, holding nothing back. It was the best decision she had ever made.